Good evening. I am Kiran KN from the Department of Electronics and Communication. And on behalf of the organizing committee and BNM Institute of Technology, I take this opportunity to welcome all the participants, students, faculties, and HODs to today's webinar on managing one's emotional well-being. At the outset, I would like to thank the management of BNM Institute of Technology, our Secretary, Sri Narayan Rao R. Mane sir, our Director, Professor T.J. Rammurthy sir, our Additional Director, Dr. S. Y. Kulkarni sir, Dean Ishwar N. Mane sir, and Principal Dr. Krishnamurthy G.N. sir, for their constant encouragement and support extended to us in organizing this webinar. Today, we have with us a very eminent resource person, Dr. Aarti Jagannathan, with us. It is indeed my honor and privilege to welcome and introduce Dr. Aarti Jagannathan. Dr. Aarti Jagannathan is a MA, MPhil, and PhD in psychiatric social work from National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, NIMHANS, Bangalore, and Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Mumbai. She is currently an associate professor of psychiatric social work associated with psychiatric rehabilitation services at NIMHANS, Bangalore. Her areas of interest include rehabilitation of persons with psychiatric disorders, including supporting employment, supporting education, facilitation of welfare benefits, community-based rehabilitation, human rights of mentally ill, yoga for mental health, and caregiver interventions. Dr. Aarti Jagannathan has more than 50 plus scientific publications in peer-reviewed international journals, national journals, and various book chapters. She helms 7 research projects as principal investigator funded by Indian Council of Medical Research, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment, Government of India, and NIMHANS in areas of yoga, vocational rehabilitation, and community-based rehabilitation. She has organized 15 plus conferences, workshops, and seminars in the area of psychiatric rehabilitation, psychiatric social work, and yoga in the last 3 years. She is a recipient of the 5th National Women's Excellence Award 2012 by the Government of India and Women's International Network. She was a part of the core committee that drafted the telepsychiatric social work guidelines for NIMHANS. We are indeed privileged to have such an eminent personality with us today. I now kindly request Dr. Aarti Jagannathan Madam to take over the session.
Thank you so much, Professor Kiran. My namaskar to all the faculty and the heads of the department. And I thank all of you for inviting me to BNM Institute of Technology. It's a pleasure for me to be here. When Srimati Bindu told me that I need to take a talk, I was very happy that I would be reaching out to the young minds, that is, the young students of today's generation. I think today's talk is extremely pertinent in the current scenario of COVID-19 pandemic, where all of us have been affected, especially in the second wave, in some way or the other, in handling our emotional health. Because it has affected our near and dear ones, it has affected us sometimes, and we have found ourselves at the lower end of the balance in handling our emotion. So first and foremost, today's presentation, I'll try wrapping it up possibly in about 20 minutes time, and then we could have an open house of questions from the students, from the faculty, from anybody who would want to ask in the area of how they can take care of their emotional health. So I'll be starting my presentation. Bindu Madam, could you see my screen? Can you see the whole screen?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, wonderful. So as I said, let's talk about generally managing one's emotional well-being. Today it is COVID, tomorrow there will be some other crisis which we may need to manage. But what is important is managing one's emotional well-being. So when you look at health overall, according to the WHO definition and according to any other definition of health, positive well-being has 4 components: the physical component, the mental component, the social component, and the spiritual component. So only when there is a right mixture of all the 4 components are we said to be in homeostasis or in balance with the entire environment. So how do we maintain this balance, or how do we take care of each of these categories of physical, mental, social and spiritual health? We will go into details in the next few minutes. Physical fitness, as we all know, I think the body requires certain amount of exercise. So there is a saying and a metaphor that if you take care of your body for 1 hour, it will take care of itself for the rest 23 hours. So it's like a car. If you keep driving the car without servicing it, without providing it petrol, it will break down someday. However, if you do service it on a daily basis or on a regular basis, in the terms of a body, if you service it on a daily basis, at least half an hour a day, you do some amount of physical exercise, then your muscles, your nerves, everything is in position where even if you fall ill, it is in a better position to recuperate and to get back. However, if you only take care of your body in crisis, then the possibility of the severity of the crisis may be very high. So body movements and exercise are extremely important. 1 hour a day to take care of my 23 hours. Not to exert too much. Too much of exercise or too little of exercise is also not good. It can lead to fatigue. And of course, it has to be age appropriate exercises. It can be yoga, it could be aerobic, it can be anything, but it has to be a good combination which will help take care of the mind and the body. Nourishment, I don't need to say. I think most of us know that we should not be having junk food. We should not be having oily food. And why is this? I think all dietitians will tell that we need at least 6 to 8 glasses of water or 2 liters of water in a day, so that accordingly my input and output gets taken care of, my digestion gets taken care of. If my body does not keep reminding me that it is there, for example, if I don't have an ache and pain in my hand or in my body, it doesn't keep reminding me that, oh, I have a pain here, oh, I have a pain there. You can freely think better. You can write your exams better, you can teach better, you can do so many things better if your body is not reminding you that main hu na. It doesn't make sense. So it's very important that I eat the right diet. I eat more of raw so that it helps in digestion better. I drink more water, keep myself hydrated so that I am able to have much more stamina and I don't get fatigued very easily. Water is extremely important to reduce fatigue in the body. The other important thing is sleep. Now, a lot of people complain about sleep, but what is important is there are certain sleep hygiene techniques which need to be followed in case you have a problem with sleep. So one of the things is you should sleep only when you're sleepy. Try avoiding afternoon naps if you're not getting sleep in the night. Try avoiding coffee, nicotine, alcohol 4 to 6 hours before you go to bed. Have a light dinner. Usually they say you should eat like a king, eat breakfast like a king, have your lunch possibly in a mediocre way, and eat dinner as a pauper. So eat very less so that digestion is easier. If you don't get sleep within 20 minutes, try doing something, getting up, reading a book, doing something so that you get sleep. Try scheduling your sleep. If you can sleep at the same time every day, if you can sleep in the same place every day, automatically your body knows when you're going to that place that you're going to sleep. Don't do any other activity in that place so that automatically when you go to that place, that position, you know that the body wants to sleep. So these are certain sleep rituals that can be followed. These can be shared with all the students also so that they have an idea. The next is about emotional well-being. The most important thing about emotional well-being is a lot of times because of a crisis, we have a number of negative thoughts or we get extremely stressed. Now we have 4 options in any situation where we get stressed. One is to avoid the stress. So if there is too much of stress, we can avoid the stress, then we should avoid. We should avoid people who possibly create stress. Try to say no, be a little more assertive, not take too much of work, and don't push for perfection. That becomes extremely important. If I cannot avoid, can I alter the situation? Can I change the situation that I'm in? Try and change from where you are. Try be assertive. See other people's point of view. See whether they are making sense so that you don't get very worked up. And always learn to express. Most of the problems come because we believe that others understand us without telling. So unless we express ourselves, others will not know what we are expecting. So we cannot say that you did not understand if you have not told them or communicated them. So it's always important that you should express. If I cannot avoid, cannot alter, I have to learn to adapt to the situation. So I have to try changing myself, not expect the world to change, and try looking at the positives and the larger picture. And finally, if I can't do any of the 3 A's, then I think I have to accept the situation. COVID-19 pandemic is a huge lesson for us, that we have to accept that we cannot do anything except get vaccinated, except take care, be safe, accept that you can't change, and as an opportunity, it should be a learning opportunity for you, and that no one is perfect, that everyone does make mistakes, and that we have to try to be as safe as possible. The other thing is managing your negative emotions. A lot of us have very high negative emotions because we're seeing a lot of negative content outside us. That's why a lot of people say that stop using social media, stop trying to read too much of negative news in the paper. Apart from reading and consuming negativity, can we also start talking more positive? So when we gossip, when we talk to our friends, most of the time you will notice that you're only talking the negative things. You're not talking anything positive. You always talk about what is not okay, what you didn't write in the exams, what mistakes you made, who scolded you, how you have been considered as good or bad. So always the negative comes out in your conversations. Can you consciously, as an exercise, try seeing that can you talk 5 sentences of positive, and in your 5 sentences only 1 sentence can be negative, not more than that. So can I change my languaging consciously so that I have more of positive that I'm expressing and less of negative? Automatically the other side will talk more positive and less negative, because more the negative we talk, the more the negative that gets discussed. So can we change the languaging that we're looking at? Our negative emotions, as soon as a negative emotion comes, we call it as changing our thoughts or cognitive restructuring. Can I first understand that yes, I'm getting a negative emotion, cut it immediately and say, okay, I'm not going to think about it, I'm going to think about something positive. Can I try solving the problem? Can I try seeing if I can deal with the problem, help others deal the problem? So get positive emotions towards it, have compassion, have readiness to help, have feeling that I need to do something in this situation, and not feel bogged down and say it's so hopeless, I can't do anything. That's another way of looking at things. Being the victim is sometimes ego fulfilling, but it's not always good. However, if you can be a hero in most of the situations, I think that will boost up your confidence. So can I change my environment? Can I have some avoiding techniques? Can I have some relaxation for my own self? That's why I said your own physical space, your physical activity is very important, which will all help in reducing the negative emotions. It is also important to have a good social support network in terms of crisis. Because what happens is that when you're in a crisis, you find yourself very, very alone. You don't find anybody around you. And that's why it's very important that this diagram, if you can take up as a homework activity and you can do it for yourself. Ideally, this diagram, I will say there are totally 3 circles. The innermost circle that you see is the primary circle of yours, that's your immediate family. The second circle is the secondary circle, that's your relatives, your friends. And the third circle is the tertiary circle, which is basically any institution or an organization, a bank. So can I have one person each for emotional support, for informational support, and for financial support? Suppose I need emotional support tomorrow, I need to go and cry or ventilate to someone. Can I have one person in the family who is my go-to person? Can I have one person among my friends and relatives who's my go-to person? And can I have one person in a tertiary level? It could be a counselor, it could be a remote person, a teacher, it could be my institution, it could be my coaching class, it could be anybody who's not part of the first two circles who can be there, whom I can go to and discuss and talk. And these three names may be there in your mind, but what is important is, can you write them down in your diary with the contact addresses, names, and phone numbers? Why is this important? Because in a crisis situation, your mind goes blank. You will not be able to think about any of these things in a crisis situation. However, when you go back to your diary, you will realize that, oh yes, I'm supposed to contact this person in case I get emotional. Then you will go and make an effort to go and talk to them and feel better. So it's always important that you have this written down. Similarly, for information support, suppose you need to know about COVID-19, or suppose you need to know where to get oxygen or which hospital beds are available, then can I have one person in the family who will be my go-to person? Right now I'm giving examples of COVID, but it can be for anything. Can I have one person at my friends or my relatives level where I can go to for information? And can I have one person? It could be an online authorized website of a government. It can be a government official. It can be my college, which could help me. It could be my teachers at a third rung, at a tertiary level, that possibly can help me in providing any information. Again, can I write down the names, contact numbers, and the addresses of these people in my diary, so that in case of emergency, I can always get in touch with them. Here we have given only minimum 3, but you can have many more, and see to it that all the 3 names are different in each of the categories. So let's not have the same people for emotional, same people for informational, same people for financial, because that does not serve the purpose. The more people you have, the more you feel that there are people around you, and it makes you feel less stressed. So it becomes important that can I have 9 different people minimum in my life whom I can reach out to. Similarly for finances, if I need money at hand for big things that I need to do, it could be for hospitalization, it could be for any good work that I want to do, anyone in the family that I can reach out to, anybody who possibly in friends and relatives, one person whom I can reach out to, and contacts in the bank, contact who can lend money, who can possibly give you at that point of time. If you can write down their details, it would help you tomorrow to improve your social support network. The next most important thing that everybody asks me is, how do you balance work life? Because today work has come home. Colleges have come home. So you're working from home, you're studying from home, you have online classes. So where do you draw the line between being at home and studying? That seriousness doesn't come in. You get disturbed by various disturbances in the house. So how do I maintain my work-life balance? And that creates a lot of emotional upheaval in the family, because in the family there are lots of other priorities that get mixed up with this. This is another activity that we give a lot of our students and people to take care of their work-life balance. Now, if you see, there are 4 colors over there, and these are the 4 important components in our life: work, family, social, and personal life. So work is basically your work. If you're a teacher, if you're an academician, your work life. If you're a student, your student life, your student classes and other things. Family is your family, how much time you need to give to your family. Social life is talking to your friends, on social media, the time that you spend, and your personal life. Social life is not personal life, let me tell you that. Your personal time is time with yourself, with no one else. Even in social media, you're with someone else. So can you have some personal time for yourself where you're not with anybody? You're reading a book on your own, you're seeing a movie on your own, you're doing things that you like on your own, singing, dancing, whatever you want. But that's your personal space, doing yoga. So in every day, so if I can have a time schedule drawn on when you're getting up in the morning at 6 in the morning and next day till next day morning. So can I color how many hours I'm spending on work? So that will be a green color. How many hours am I spending with my family? How many hours am I spending in social, and how many hours am I spending in my personal time? It can be as less as half an hour or 1 hour for any one category, and as high as 8 to 10 hours for any one category. You can have an imbalance. But what is important is that on every day, there should be all 4 colors that should be depicted, even if it's for just half an hour that any one color is depicted. The reason being, if I have time for all 4 activities in one day, that means somehow you're able to balance your life and you will not get that drained and stressed at the end of the week. However, if you color your schedule today, you will realize that possibly you have only 3 colors or you have only 2 colors in the day. Another 2 colors are missing. That means that you need to improve and see over a period of 1 week, if you can have all 4 colors on all the days, then on the Sunday you will feel really good. You will not get emotionally drained and you will be able to manage your work-life balance better. You will not feel that everybody is using me. I have some personal time for myself is what you will feel. This is another activity that you can do to see that you can maintain your emotions with yourself. This is a very important thing. I think sharing roles and helping others. In today's scenario, everybody is at home. Everybody is burdened. Your parents are either working, your family members are working, or they're helping out in the household, and they are also feeling burdened because suddenly it's a different scenario for them where everybody is at home, where you are having so much of FaceTime with each other. You've never had FaceTime so much with each other. So is there some work that they are finding it difficult? Can you help them out with that? Sharing and helping not just the immediate family, maybe relatives, maybe outsiders. This concept that can I help others? Can I be a source of help to others instead of me believing that others should help me? When you start becoming a victim, you will always feel drained. When you start becoming a hero and trying to see that can I help out and reach out to others, can I share the roles with others, you will also feel good. Others will also feel that you are understanding them. I think this shift in attitude has to come in, which becomes important. And of course, if you feel in spite of all these techniques, in spite of all these activities, you feel that nothing is working, you're feeling extremely helpless, hopeless, then I think you should seek help. You have your family to reach out to, your friends, you have your institution to reach out to, and any mental health professional, any psychologist, psychiatrist, social worker that you can reach out to for help, who will possibly help you to come out of the situation. I think these small techniques that you can take, and if you can implement in the next 1 week, whether it is the social support chart, whether it is reaching out to someone, whether it is your personal time diary, whether it is your sleep hygiene techniques, or if you can look at the 4 A's and see how you can utilize the 4 A's and manage your emotions. I think if you can try all these activities, you will be better able to manage your own emotional well-being at the end of 1 week. I will end my presentation over here, and I'm open to any questions that anybody would want to ask in today's session. Thank you, and I hope it was useful to all of you.
Thank you, madam, for such a educative, encouraging, and excellent talk on managing one's emotional well-being. So we will be able to appreciate when we get into the question and answer session, because that is where we will get to know and learn many things from you. So we will now open the forum for question and answer session.
I would request, sir, if someone can moderate the questions and give me, I mean, people can either put it on chat or they can raise their hands, and if someone from your side can moderate and tell me the questions, then I would answer that.
Yes, madam, I'll be doing that. So we will now have an open house. So students and participants, you can put up your questions in the chat box and we will take it to the resource person. Madam, let me initiate the first question.
Sure, please.
As you said, you asked us to make a contact list of whom all to contact. Now let us assume they themselves are in crisis. So that is a situation which is unforeseen. So what do we do in that context?
I understand. And that's why I said that it becomes very important that your social support network is not only 2 or 3 people. And that's why I said you have at least a minimum of 9 people. And if you can have more, that's wonderful, so that you have options in front of you. And it always is important that if I don't have someone whom I can reach out to because they are in a crisis, so they possibly cannot help me at that point of time, I should have a backup with someone else. And that's why there are at least 3 people in each of the categories whom I can fall back on at any point of time to help me out. And just the feeling that I have so many people, the perceived social support, the concept that we have, helps us feel much better and less stressed.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a next question.
Yeah.
It is from Mohanesh. How do we control anger? So maybe in the time of crisis, we tend to get angry. So how do we take care of that?
Okay. Now, one very important thing about anger is that anger is usually an outcome when I'm not able to control the situation that is in front of me. So when I feel that I don't have control over the situation, then I get angry. Now, that is one of the methods of expressing. So why is the situation not in control? Is it because that it's something like COVID where things are not under my control, I have to learn to accept it? Or is it something that possibly can be altered either by my behavior or someone else's behavior? So I think over there that 4 A's that I spoke to you about will be extremely helpful, where I think as soon as you get angry, if you can try changing your environment, moving to a different location, that is from one room where you got angry to another room, try reading a book, diverting your mind, try moving to another activity. And once you've cooled down, I think you need to do your 4A analysis. Could I have avoided this situation because of which I got angry? Or could I have altered myself in some way in the way I reacted? Could I adapt to the situation in the sense, even if, if someone is going to continuously keep screaming at me, then should I ever get worried about it and stop, getting worried about it? Or can I possibly just accept that that's how the situation is? And it's not in my control, so why am I trying to get it in my control? So I think the 4 A's, if you actually practice when you have come back to your normalcy after anger and try analyzing. One of the techniques that we tell people is to do introspection. In the end of the day, if you can just sit and just run through your day, you don't need to play a devil's advocate for yourself, you don't need to analyze yourself, but what's important is just run through your day. And when you run through your day slowly, you will realize what are the mistakes you have done, how you should improve your behavior, or what are the good things that you have done. You don't need to brand anything over there. You do introspection for about a week on a daily basis, just to observe what you have done the whole day. You will realize that when you get angry or when you do anything negative, the 8th day or the 9th day, you will automatically, your brain will tell me, okay, I've been observing myself every day and I'm not supposed to do it. So I'm supposed to adapt to it differently. And it will help you to not react, but respond to things better. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes. Ma'am, the next question is from Dr. P.A. Vijaya. The question is like this. During lockdown, many of us are in a very stressed out situation, and there's been a lot of online work from home, and there is no control over the timings. There is no clear-cut demarcations. So how do we handle this situation?
Yes. Now, for a lot of us, it's very important that this unstructuredness causes a lot of difficulty in our life, and that's why I said that the personal time schedule that we have, if you can draw up a personal time schedule, now you don't need to be very stringent in your personal time schedule. So some days the work can go on for a little extra hours. Some days the work can be less. But if you can see that you have all 4 colors in your life, so what is important is that assume that your work is like being in the warfield and you have to expend a lot of energy cognitively and physically. Now, unless in the battlefield, if everybody keeps fighting the battle and does not come back to the tent to possibly nurse their wounds or to have a small eat or a drink, water a little, and then go back and rejuvenated fight, you will never be able to fight the war. So you cannot continuously keep working. Hence, every day, can I have some time for my personal life, some time for my social life, some time for my family life, so that even if it is very minuscule time that I have for my personal and social life, that energy that I get from my personal and social life will enable me to deal with how many ever long hours that I have, how many ever long stretches of family life that I have that I need to deal with. So it's important to re-energize yourself by coming back to your space in order to go back to that larger space where you have to work in these uncertain times. We can take the next question.
Yes, ma'am. The next question is from Karpagam, madam. How to get over the loss of a family member?
Yeah, I think it's a very difficult situation in today's times, and it is extremely difficult to come out of loss of a very, very close family member. My sympathies with you. You need to give yourself time. Grief, loss takes a minimum of 9 months to get over. You need to give yourself that much time. And in that period of time, if you want to think about the person, if you want to ventilate, if you want to talk to someone, it becomes even more important, because the more you're able to express and talk and not keep the emotions bottled inside, it's like a pressure cooker. If you keep bottling it inside and close the lid without putting the whistle on top, it will burst someday. So it's important that if you can talk to someone, either your teachers or your friends or someone, you can continuously keep talking about it, expressing how you're feeling, what is going through your mind, all those things, then you will automatically over a period of time be able to accept the situation. You will not be able to take the person out of your mind, and that should not be your goal also. Your family members should never be out of your mind. They should always be in your memory. You should always have good memories of them. What is important is that you have to learn to accept the situation that they are no longer there with you. One of the things that we tell people is, can you hang or see photographs of happy times of them instead of keep remembering the death faces or keep remembering the troubled times that they are in. It will make you feel happy and feel good about it. The second thing that you can do is, can you try possibly looking at helping others who are in need, or helping the other family members to see that they can come back to normalcy if they are also in a bad situation. However, if you feel that significant amount of time has passed and you're not able to do your basic activities is sleeping, eating your food, taking your bath, and your regular activities. If you're not able to do these 3 activities for at all, I mean 0%, you're not able to do any of these things for more than a month or 2, then I think you have to reach out to a mental health professional who would provide you some support through counseling or medicines to get back to cycle. However, if you're able to do all your daily activities and just feel emotionally drained, I think talking to someone over a period of time will help you accept the situation. Helping others will help you handle the situation. And also possibly looking at good memories of theirs will help you handle the situation.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question is from Kriti Jaira, madam. It's a slightly technical question.
Yeah.
She wants to know how stress is caused because of a lack of sleep.
Yes, stress is also caused because of lack of sleep, because it becomes extremely important that we have a good sleep. Now, in sleep, we have 4 stages. Now, the first is basically the sleep where we have light sleep. Then we slowly get into a stage where most of our muscles relax. And then we go into a state of dream state and non-dream state. So it alternates between dream and non-dream state. Now, only when we go into this dream and then non-dream state, and it takes at least about 4 hours, 2 to 4 hours to get into that state. So if you have not had quality sleep, and a lot of psychoanalytical theories talk about how dreams are a way of an open basket, where all my negative thoughts, negative things get thrown away, get sort of come out, purge out in the night, so that I can be fresh in the morning with less number of thoughts, because the whole day you've seen so much of stimuli, and so much of stimuli gets stored in your brain, and it has to come out some way. And hence it becomes very important that you sleep well. You have at least quality sleep, if not quantity sleep, so that you feel fresh in the morning after getting up. And if you have less amount of sleep, now, as I said, quality sleep is more important than quantity. So a lot of textbooks may say you should have 6 to 8 hours of sleep. But 6 to 8 hours, if I'm not having good sleep, it doesn't make sense. Well, even if I'm sleeping for 4 to 5 hours, but I'm having good quality sleep, I think that's more than enough that we're looking at. So quality is more important than quantity.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is from Dhanush Upadhyay. He asks, why should we avoid an afternoon nap?
If you're having sleep problems in the night, then you should avoid an afternoon nap, because if you sleep in the afternoon, then one is you get drawn to that habit of sleeping in the afternoon, and if you have to work in the afternoon, so if you're given some assignment, you will not be able to do. Again, if you're having sleep disturbances in the night, then if you avoid the afternoon nap, then automatically you will feel your body gets tired and exhausted with all the stimuli. When does the body get exhausted? I mean, let me come back to the basics again. Most of my energy is depleted because I am seeing things continuously. So when you close your eyes in meditation, you're conserving energy. When you open your eyes, which we do most of the day, it dissipates energy. So I get drained towards the day. When you talk, you dissipate energy, so you get drained towards the day if you're talking too much in a day. Hence, in meditation, you close your mouth, you close your eyes, so you're conserving energy. So in a day, if I'm continuously talking to different people, if my mind is talking, if my mouth is talking, and if I'm opening my eyes and I'm picking up all the stimuli around me, by evening and night, I get physically and mentally drained, because of which I automatically can get sleep. However, if I'm not able to get sleep in the night, and if I take a short nap in the afternoon, then my body requirements to some extent get taken care of in the afternoon, and my night sleep can get affected. Hence, it's important that if your night sleep is affected, you should avoid the afternoon nap. But if your night sleep is not affected, you don't have too much of work to do, you have to anyway spend your time, then you can take a short nap in the afternoon also.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is a very pertinent one. It is from Abhignan. He says, ma'am, I have made many timetables over the years, but have never been able to keep it up for more than a week. My motivation just goes down and I can't fill all the colors in my day.
Okay, so Abhigyan, one suggestion that I would have for you is what I have learned recently is that your time schedule should not be very stringent. For example, if you have 10 activities in a day that you need to finish, always remember that there will be a 30% spillover that you need to keep as buffer. So you should always schedule for only 70% of the activities. You can't assume that 100% you will finish. Always certain activities take more time, certain activities take less time, which are not in our control. In between, we may be called for something, we may need to do something else. So always schedule your day for 70% of the activities and not 100% of the activities. You will find yourself being more successful in completing schedules. The second thing is always take one day at a time. So always don't schedule for the whole week. I know it's very ambitious to offer the whole month. So can I schedule for today? So you start today morning and you schedule for 70%, so that 30% you give flex. 30%, okay, when I mean 30% should be free time in that day that you will keep, so that in case that 70% spills over, you will still have some free time for yourself to complete the day's work. So in which case can I schedule for daily basis instead of scheduling for week and scheduling for the month? And can I schedule for 30% of free time and 70% of work day, so that in case my work spills over, I always will complete at the end of the day and feel like a victory. And when you feel like a victory on one day, the next day you will feel like doing it again. Automatically it builds the chain and you can do yourself. Of course, we have in behavior science, we have something called as reinforcement. So your parents can give you you can give yourself a reinforcement that only if I complete today's work, I will sit in social media. Only if I complete, so you put checks and balances on yourself. But more than checks and balances, that can also be done. You can also reward yourself and punish yourself if required if you've not done. More than that, I think the main problem is time management. And time management can be taken care of if 30% you give free time to yourself in a day, 70% of work you do.
Okay, madam. Madam, the next question is from Lakshmi Narayan. He asks, ma'am, how can I concentrate on one thing at a time?
Yeah, I think what you need to do is when you need to concentrate on one thing at a time, you don't have too many thoughts in your head. And in order to calm your thoughts, it's not just one activity. I think you need to do it on a regular basis for a number of activities. So first and foremost, I would suggest that you do some amount of dhyana or meditation. Now, I won't say meditation, I will call it non-doing. What is non-doing, or what is focused attention? If I can focus everything on one activity, I get so engrossed in that one activity that automatically I get dissolved in that activity that I don't know place, time and space. So it can be music. So what do you like doing? Do you like listening to music? Do you like any activity which is non-social media and non-TV, non-visual? So do you like listening to music? Do you like possibly reading a book, a fairy tale book? So something like that, which you can, ideally I would say if you can just close your eyes and listen to music if you like music. Get involved in the music as much as possible. If your thoughts move away, bring them back to the song. It can be any song. Again, if the thoughts move away, bring them back to your song. If on a daily basis as part of your personal time, you can spend time doing non-doing. Non-doing is focusing your attention on one. That one can be music, that one can be chanting, that one can be exercise, that one can be anything that you do. Over a period of time, you will notice that lesser number of times you have to catch your thought and bring it back to that activity that you are doing. Also, you will find over a period of time that it's not just in that activity, in all spheres of your life, lesser amount of times you have to catch your thought and bring it back. So can you have half an hour a day of dedicated, focused attention on any activity that you like? And as and when your thought goes, don't get worried, bring back your thought and say, okay, now I will concentrate on this again. So concentrate continuously on listening to the music, or concentrate continuously on possibly listening to a talk by some inspirational person, or concentrate continuously on reading a positive magazine, or possibly reading a good book or a good novel or something like that, so that when your thoughts go up, again bring it back. And when you're able to reduce the variance of the thoughts of going and coming back, you will realize that concentration also builds in studies, in doing other activities. When you're multitasking, you will still be able to concentrate on one thing at a time.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is from Kumar sir. He asks, how to overcome the stress of others' expectation about my performance?
That's a very pertinent question. What's important is, first you have to express your self well to others. So you have to tell people that this is what I am, this is what I can do, this is what I can, this is my level. And if that is your expectation, I can possibly try once or twice. If I'm not able to reach it and it's causing stress in me and causing stress in you, then I think we should lower down our expectation, and this is what I am, learn to accept. Now, even after you tell, a lot of people will still have expectations from you. Now, you need to realize whether you are undervaluing yourself or others are overvaluing themselves. So that is why I said you give yourself 1 or 2 trials. Do what they think you can do. If you still feel you haven't been able to do it, that means possibly they are overrating you. If you feel you've been able to raise the bar to what they have said, and that is your limit, then tell them that is your limit. So it is always important that you stretch your imaginary finishing line and see to it whether you can reach that imaginary finishing line. It will be a small tick mark to your ego. If not, you tell the others that this is my imaginary finishing line and I can't go beyond that. But both ways, you have to express things explicitly so that there is no undue aggression or no undue force on you or pressure on you which creates stress.
Ma'am, the next question is from Yasha madam. She asks, a lot of youngsters do not follow a regular pattern of working and sleeping. So how do we make them understand the importance of work-life balance?
Yeah, I think work and sleep is extremely important. Like I just spoke to someone about sleep. Sleep is recharging yourself. If you want to continuously work with full capacity and full energy, you want to be the best at your work. It can be any work. It can be helping out in household chores. it can be in housework, it can be in studying, it can be at work life. If you want to do well, if you want to have all the energy to do that, your body needs that rest. And if your body needs that rest, you need to sleep quality time in order to refresh yourself to come back. Otherwise, it's like the car that I said, which will keep running, and one day it will break to the extent that you have to be hospitalized. I don't think any of us want to be in that situation, especially after seeing COVID. All of us want to be in good health. All of us don't want to be in a situation of crisis. So it is very important that we maintain the balance of sleep and wakefulness so that we have enough energy to carry on in our daily life.
Okay, ma'am. The next question is from Achyuta. This is a question that runs across the minds of all the children, if I may say so. How do we reduce our stress, boredom, and strain caused by online classes and sitting in front of the screen?
Yeah, I think stress, boredom, online classes is, I think, your prerogative better, Professor Kiran. But what I would want to say is that you need to have some amount of break, even for the BNM IT. I would want to say that if you can have at least 5 or 10 minutes of break in between classes, as a small break where people can just go and do something that they like and come back, it will be good, because continuous concentration may be difficult. Continuous trying to focus energy may also be difficult where multiple thoughts come in. So some amount of 5 minutes or 10 minutes break where you do something totally different from studies. So you can go listen to a music quickly, you can have a short 5 to 10 minutes nap if possible, you can go read one chapter of an interesting book that you haven't read, or you can quickly go and do some cooking if it's girls who love cooking. Something in 5 to 10 minutes as a break and then come back. If that's feasible to draw in the schedule in the college, I think it will help a lot of people to break the monotony and come back to concentrate better.
Thank you. The next question is from Nisarga. How do you feel better when you are sad, even after letting out your emotions?
As I said, you need to give yourself time. You need to give yourself time, because sadness, coming out of sadness is not like having a Dolo 650 or a paracetamol that the next day your fever goes off. You have to continuously express, these are deep rooted emotions. Second is, you have to be true to your emotions. You can say that you're feeling sad, but to the outside world, if you're showing that you're a hero, that you're not, it's not affected you, then you're not being true to your emotions. So are you being true to your emotions completely? That is from morning to evening. You're not showing any false face. Second, are you expressing enough to people? And if you're able to do both this over a period of time, you will be able to come out of this. If you're still not able to come out of this, as I said, and it's affecting your basic living activities, sleep, eating, and bathing, or whatever are the activities of daily living that you do, I think you need help and you need to see a mental health professional.
Okay, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is from Saif Ali Zaidi. If a person truly feels guilty for their mistake, should we forget everything and forgive them?
When you talk about forgiveness, I think forgiveness is something which does not necessarily help the person who has made the mistake, but it helps the other person much more. Because if you don't forgive that person, the thought keeps running in your head. It is unnecessary baggage that you're carrying. Why did he do this? Why did he do this? What is happening? Why did it happen? Now you have so many other activities in life to do. You have so many other goals to reach. You have to become the best person in your field. You have to achieve so many things in life. And if you're continuously again and again thinking the same thought like a stuck tape recorder, then you're not moving anywhere in life. So it is in your own interest that you forgive and forget, so that you move on in life more than the interest of the other person.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is from Vaibhav. You have been talking about the importance of sleep. So how do we get a quality sleep? Because even after sleeping for 6-7 hours, there are instances where we still have tiredness and no energy in the morning.
Yeah, I think I have laid down the sleep hygiene techniques in that PPT. So the PPT can be shared with all the students, and it will be nice if you can follow all those sleep hygiene techniques that I have said. And if you still have an issue, then possibly you can reach out to a counselor or a psychologist who could help you out.
Okay, ma'am, the next question is from Dr. Muralidhar. He says senior people who are more than 50 plus need some kind of an afternoon nap for 10 to 15 minutes to regain energy. Is it scientifically valid? How do you go about it?
Each one's body is different. Your body will tell you whether you need an afternoon nap or not, and it is perfectly all right to have an afternoon nap. There is no scientific theory behind it. It's all to do with the amount of physical and mental input that you're taking in the day. And if your body or your mind feels that you're not able to take it, it will feel exhausted and fatigued and will want to sleep. In the night, it will all the more want, because the whole day's baggage is there that you're carrying. So if you feel sleepy, please sleep. Don't get into the science and maths of it. It's very simple to sleep. If you feel you don't want to sleep, I think you can sleep in the night.
Okay. Ma'am, the next question is from Navya. She asks, ma'am, during exam time, I usually tend to get hyper frustrated. How can I balance it?
Yeah. Couple of things that you need to see is, one is, are you systematic in your studies? So are you reading little by little over a period of time so that you don't accumulate too many things towards the end? You also need to find out whether you have too much of expectations from yourself, that, are you drawing very unrealistic time schedules for yourself just before the exams to say that I have to finish this whole thing, then only I will be able to write the exam well. That's the second. Third is, do you have too high expectations from yourself, or does your family have too high expectations from yourself? And if either of these three are valid, then automatically you will feel very hyper during the situation. And if either of these three are taken care of, or all of these three are taken care of, your expectations about yourself that, I will give my best, but I will leave the rest. Things are not in my hand beyond me writing the exam. If my family is explained that possibly this is my level and this is what I'm trying my best to do, if you don't accumulate work towards the end of the exams, and if you have realistic timetables that you're drawing which you don't fail in, then I think automatically you will not feel frustrated and anxious before the exam.
Ma'am, the next question is from Shweta. She asks, how do we stabilize our mood and get a hold on our emotions?
I think I have spoken about stabilization on mood and hold on emotions through that flowchart of cognitive restructuring. So as soon as I have a negative emotion, the first and foremost important thing is to recognize that I am having a negative emotion. A lot of times in this way of emotions, your intelligence will not work. So first and foremost, that's why I say introspection is extremely important. In the night, if you can just introspect your whole day, you will realize when all you're tripping with respect to negative emotions. And if you trip, at that point of time, if you have the understanding that you're having a negative emotion, automatically you should be able to change your environment, you should be able to divert yourself, you should be able to bring it to a level of positive emotion to change. But for that, first you need to have the awareness when you're angry that you're getting angry, the awareness that when you're getting jealous, you're getting jealous. And for that awareness, I think introspection in the night helps by just observing your whole day and seeing how you have behaved.
Ma'am, before we get into the next question, I have a small information. Dear participants, the feedback form link is put up in the chat box. So I kindly request you to please give us the feedback for today's session. Yeah, ma'am, we'll go to the next question, which is from Dr. Deepa HR. She asks, today's younger generation have an attitude of not listening to their parents and teachers. So how do we convince them?
Yeah, I think we are in the information age today, and everybody wants information, not just the younger generation, but the older generation also. None of us get explained by emotions that, you have to listen to me because I'm your mother, you have to listen to me because I'm your father, you have to listen to me because I am right, or you have to listen to me because this is the right thing to do. So everybody is in an information age, and your intelligence will understand only if you detail the science, art, why should someone do this, why should someone not do that. Unfortunately, we don't have the time to discuss intellectually as to why we are telling them to do what we are doing, and hence the conflict arises. if you're able to talk to the intelligence of the adolescent, if you're able to explain enough to the intelligence of the adolescent, they themselves will be able to take the same decision that you are able to take. But unfortunately, parents don't have the time enough to invest to explain decisions to them and say you should listen to this, that's all, because this is my say. So it becomes important, actually a responsibility of the parents, to talk, give quality time to their children, to talk to the intelligence of the children, and also accept certain intelligent decisions of the children. I mean, always they cannot be wrong. So always have an intellectual dialogue with them so that they feel participative and they don't rebut or they don't get back aggressive.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is from Achyut. He says most of the times when we like something, we don't have a problem doing it. But when we hate doing something, then we usually tend to get distracted very easily. So what's the solution for this?
Yeah, now I think there are two things that you need to take care of. One is there's something called as pain and pleasure. Okay, so it's very natural that we adopt everything that is pleasurable and we avoid everything that is painful. There is also another concept of what is right and what is wrong, right? Or what is necessary and what is not necessary. Now, what is pleasurable and what is right, there is no confusion. What is pleasurable but what is not right, right? For example, having an ice cream in winter may be pleasurable but not right because you may get a cold. So these sort of things are dilemma situations. So at that point of time, I think if we choose pain over pleasure, so you have to intellectually discuss with yourself again. If you choose pain over pleasure because you choose the right over the wrong, automatically your ego will give you a tick mark and you will feel, okay, I have been able to do something which possibly I may have not been able to do earlier. So can you try giving yourself these small victories of trying to see whether you can always do the right over the wrong, then the pleasurable over the painful, and even if it's painful and it is right, can I see whether I still do it and not go for the pleasure of it because it is wrong. I hope I have been able to clarify your question.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, the next question is from Pooja. How can we stop from overthinking and being too scared about the people we love?
Too scared about the people we love?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of health wise, maybe if some harm is going to happen to them or something, like being overcautious.
Yeah, I think you need to have enough time for yourself, for everybody. As I said, if you can introspect in the night, if you can take care of your personal time chart and have some time for yourself and not be 24 hours with them so that you get only worried about them, I think you may be better able to organize your life. But if the worry is too much that it's affecting your day-to-day activities and life and studies, I think you need to see someone.
Yeah. Ma'am, the next question is,
yeah,
getting attracted to a person and being honest and transparent to them is good or bad?
Getting attracted to someone, being honest and transparent is good, but expecting that they should also be attracted to us and be honest and transparent of it, expectation management is something that you need to take care of. So I can love whomever I want, but expecting that the other person also should like me, that is not being fair. That's not human rights also. They like me, whether I like them or not, that's a different issue. But expect you liking someone is your problem. It ends over there. Whether they like you or not, or expecting that they like you because of which you get stressed, then that is getting into a loop of expectation management. High expectation with no return, which will only cause more harm and hurt for you. So the problem is not in loving someone and being true to your feelings, but the problem is expecting the same from the other person, which may not necessarily be there.
Yeah. Ma'am, I have another question.
Yeah.
Because most of the times now we are online, So either we are connected through the mobile phone or laptops. So apart from the regular things, we tend to browse so many things which we feel is interesting to us, but may not be helpful in the long run. So how do we have a control over what we do online?
Yeah, I think what's important is that self-regulation has to come from self, and control is again sometime in a day you can go wayward here and there. I think it's okay. You shouldn't be too strict on yourself. But if you can possibly draw the schedule for yourself and you know that, okay, now I have to move on to another activity, now I have to do something else, then automatically this wandering will reduce because I know that I have something else to do the next. Now, if you have an important cricket match that is coming in the next 10 minutes, you will not allow your mind to wander or the social media to wander yourself in social media. Or if you have another important test that is coming up in another 10 minutes, you will not wander. So if you can draw goals for yourself in the day through your personal activity schedule, automatically your wandering will reduce.
Ma'am, the next question is, how do we avoid negative people and negativity?
Okay. You cannot avoid negative people. You can avoid negativity because how you process their negativity is in your hands. You cannot avoid people. So what is important is that you take in only what you think you want to take in. You don't take in what you think you don't want to take in. Second most important thing is how much ever negative they are, if you can talk 5 sentences of positive and talk only 1 sentence of negative out of that, then that their negativity is not influencing you. Can you see the brighter side of things? Then they will start learning to talk like you in 5 positive and 1 negative.
Sure, ma'am.
I just wanted to check, I mean, how much time do we have or what are the timelines that we're looking at?
Yeah, we are almost at the end of the question and answer session, madam. So that was the last question that you just spoke about.
Yeah.
Ma'am, we now have our additional director, Sir Dr. S.Y. Kulkarni,
Okay.
and I would like to request him to please speak for 2 minutes
Sure.
about today's
Please.
webinar.
Yeah, Dr. Arti. Yeah, thank you very much. It was a wonderful session. And I think I should congratulate you first because the kind of the questions some of the students asked and then the kind of the answers you gave, I think whatever the doubts they had and what they need to do, I think everything's been told crystal clear. I think for that, you really need big thanks from us. And when I look at the present day context, I think this session was required. When Dr. Bindu came to me for asking the permission to conduct this particular program, without taking even 1 minute more, I mean, I agreed to this because I felt that, I mean, at this moment, I mean, this kind of the sessions are required and our students have to be told about that. And one good thing here is that it is not only the students, I think many questions were also from the faculty members. And whatever the problems they are facing with online, it is not only the students, I mean, who raised, even the faculty members also raised in this particular session. And I was a silent spectator and I was listening to all of them. And also I could understand, I mean, what are the things that we need to really take care. And in that way, you really helped us. And for the students, I would like to tell that now, I think you must be knowing that, I mean, every student is going to be measured or evaluated by the kind of the attributes they are going to have totally in the program. And when we look at your program, so many graduate attributes that are being arrived at, and you are going to be evaluated based on that. And one of the attributes is that, I mean, how good you are in balancing emotions and how your emotions are being well managed. So now there's also one of the factor. I think even in many of the companies, when you go for the job, along with the technical competence and along with other skills, they also check like, I mean, how good you are emotionally. And it has become almost like an mandatory core nowadays. And then all students, they need to work themselves to be strong emotionally. I think the technique of balancing the emotions, I think now it has become very, very important. And I'm also very happy that, I mean, you told one point. The most important thing is that, I mean, work with the on introspection mode, and whatever the activities that are being done, I mean, how well your emotions are being shown in the previous activities. I mean, taking the example of that and building over that, and then behaving future and showing your emotions further. You know, I think that is going to be very important. And with our artificial intelligence, which is becoming very popular, see, one of the important factors is that all the intelligence is being evaluated, or say, is being arrived at based on the past data. I think even with talking about the emotions also, I think without looking at the past data, I mean, we can't do anything. And I request all my students that look at how your emotions were in the previous occasions, and how it was done, and then what mistakes you did, what it would have been, and what need to be done. You know, I think if you're able to introspect yourself prospectively, I mean, designing your activities and then doing better, I think it's going to be very easy. And that's going to be the requirement. I think keeping all these things in mind, you know, I'm really very happy. This session really went on very well. And you really answered all their questions. I think made their doubts clear. And on behalf of BNMIT, I think we'd like to thank you. And I think we'll also look for some more occasions where you can really interact with our students in future also, and give them the tips and whatever the kinds of the doubts have, but I think they need to be cleared. So thank you very much. And all the people like Dr. Vijaya and Hindu and Kiran, all these people, I mean, who are involved in organizing this session, I would like to congratulate them also. And it is a very good session. And I think it is a very good job that is being done. And I'm very sure that the students are really benefited by this program. So I enjoyed this session thoroughly. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, now I kindly request Ishwar Mane sir to speak to us.
Thank you, Aarti madam, for sharing your thoughts with our students as well as our faculty. I think our faculty have enjoyed this program more than our students. I am 100% sure about that, looking at the comments in the chat box. So I am very happy that the program was conducted very well. I thank the organizers as well for conducting such a wonderful program. And this is most relevant when our mindset in today's times is kind of wavering because of the external factors everybody is going through, and having a strong mind in such times is the key to overcome these difficulties. So wonderful program once again, and I thank you for sharing your wonderful thoughts and answering the questions very patiently and in a very calm and composed manner. So thank you once again. And definitely we look forward to having you on campus very soon. All the best, madam. Good luck.
Thank you, sir. Happiness can be found even in the darkest of the times, even in the darkest of the times, if one only remembers to turn on the light. So today's session has been one such occasion where we are trying to remember ourselves to turn on the light. And thank you, Dr. Aarti Jagannathan, madam, for the wonderful session and for patiently answering all the queries of our participants, students, and faculty members. And thank you also for consenting to be a part of this webinar and enlightening us on several key aspects about how to maintain one's emotional well-being. And I would also like to thank the organizing committee of this webinar, Dr. P.A. Vijaya, HOD, ECE Department, BNMIT, Dr. B.K. Jayanna sir, HOD, Department of Chemistry, BNMIT, Dr. Deepa HR, HOD, Physics, BNMIT, and last but not the least, Dr. Bindu madam, for taking care of all the logistics in arranging this webinar and ensuring that this goes on in a very smooth fashion. Thank you, Bindu madam. Thank you all the participants and students for your active participation and making this webinar successful. We hope to see you soon in such webinars in the future. Thank you very much, madam. And participants, please give your feedback in the feedback link that is provided in the chat box. Thank you. Bindu madam, if you would like to
thank you. In spite of your busy schedule, accepting Thank you, ma'am. It was a very good session. It was wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you to everybody from B&M Institute of Technology. Thank you for inviting. Pleasure.
Thank you, ma'am. We will now conclude the session. Thank you.